Kia ora, everyone, and welcome back to Mucky Hope Productions. I'm your host, Mucky Hope. And boy, oh boy, do we have a very special podcast. We're talking about the king of Australian Survivor, arguably one of the best players to never win. So for such an all-star player, I got to get an all-star panel here tonight. And we'll start off, as always, with a lovely lady, on the bottom left. It is Michelle or Winchell. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm very warm in my obligatory blanket, apparently.
Yes, this is the blanket podcast tonight. No exceptions, Michelle. If you take it off just once, I will kick you off the stream.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah.
But out of the alliance.
Yeah, out of the alliance. You've been voted out of the podcast. And, this is his third time appearing on the series we're doing. We're talking about all the Australian Survivor players and the world players. Everyone, please welcome the amazing Useless. How's it going, bro?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Mucky?
I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you so much for asking, bro. I was a little bit cold. I walked half an hour in the rain, but because of your brilliant idea, I'm now warmed up. So I'm very grateful.
Yes, I'm loving that I could convince 3 adults to put a blanket on in front of thousands of people on your live, Mucky.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thousands. Oh my gosh, we're going crazy right now. But I'm very excited for this last guest. I feel like he's a hard man to track down, whether if he's hunting down trolls or getting into court cases with Survivor players on the official Survivor AU page. He is a legend. We all know his name. It's the amazing King Meme of Memestown.
Thank you. Yeah, all good. I feel like I'm going to be the first one to break away from this blanket alliance, given that I'm currently in a singlet and it's hot in my room. But I'll do anything to be in the alliance. I'll fall for any sort of peer pressure. So we'll see how we go. But no, I'm very excited to talk tonight about my king, the one true king, King George.
Yeah, well, Brendan, that's what makes a good alliance member, right? When you just crumble under pressure and you just do whatever the group says. Who cares what's best for your personal interest? You got to do it for the alliance.
Exactly, and I feel that's a very good segue into George. I feel a lot of the time George's alliances did what was best for George until, the end when they realized, oh shit, if we continue this, we're going to lose. But he was able to basically make anything work from any scenario, any sort of position. He somehow always squeezed his way through. And I think that's one trait that he's probably the best in across all the franchises of recent seasons. And that is getting people to do what he wants, getting people to do his bidding. So if it's like Useless getting us to all wear a blanket, I think that's very George of him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of George, the number one George fan is here in the chat. Char Dude, welcome back again with the Muck Lord 3000 himself. Should be 5,000 because 5 is my favorite number, Char Dude. And we've got the full lineup, right? You're damn right, bro. We've got the full lineup. And as always, Michelle, who is George? Like, wasn't King George in like,
Who is George?
I don't know, like 1350, BC? Wasn't he some guy in the medieval times or something like that? Like,
I'm not sure.
Who is this guy?
He loves Macedonian Jesus. He loves Bankstown.
Crazy.
He was in Brains versus Brawn. He came second. He had 1 individual immunity win. And then he was in Heroes versus Villains. He came 4th. No individual immunity wins, which, if you can get to the end without an individual immunity win, I think that's fantastic. Mind you, he did have idols. He's the strategic king. He, out of all the Australian men who have played, he has played the longest. He has lasted 94 days. That's the most out of any Australian man. Here we go.
How exciting, but Useless. Do you know who else hasn't won any individual immunities and has made it to the very end? Jerry, the strategic icon and Jerry from the Heroes tribe. Like, why isn't Jerry on the Australian tribe?
Wait, are we talking about Jericho from season 2?
No, Jerry from Heroes vs. Villains.
Jerry.
Jerry,
I think
the
the
helicopter.
accent.
No, the
Oh my god, this
helicopter
New Zealand accent. I can't understand him. Oh, I feel like this is our alliance breakdown. I'm like Sam Webb. I'll
Yeah.
write the wrong name
Yeah.
down because I can't understand what Mucky's saying. Jerry, I mean, I reckon he's kind of very similar to George, as they're both great goats. You just take them along to the end because you know you can beat them at the end. And I'm going to be that one person on this panel that will talk about how George isn't the greatest to never win and is absolutely the all-time biggest goat of Australian Survivor.
Okay, well, just before we go into why you think he's not, let's go into why he is probably like the GOAT of Survivor. And I'll start with you, Brendan. Like, why do you love George so much?
When you think of Australian Survivor, if you had to make a Mount Rushmore, I guarantee you 99% of people would have George on there. Useless's opinion doesn't count. We've all seen his posts. We're not even going to go there.
Yeah.
So when it comes to George, firstly, he's the face of the franchise. He's the reason Survivor is as popular as it is, in my opinion. He's a game breaker. He's basically the best strategic player out there. And I think this sort of season is perfectly suited for him because this is a season of massive players. Like if you put George in any returnee season again in Australia, he'll be voted out pre-merge, I reckon. But he's shown on his newbie season, he made all the way through. On his half returnee season, he made it all the way through. And now that he's in a season where he's got his reputation behind him, but everyone else has just as big a reputation. If there's one thing George has above everyone else in this game, it is his strategic knowledge and just the way he makes deals with everyone. So I think that's something that no one comes close, not in this current game and not in any previous games he's played.
Yeah. And how about you, Michelle? Why do you love George so much?
Because he's strategic and he can flip anything around. He might be a tribal council and he might have the majority of votes, well, he thinks, or we think, going towards him. And he can move people around by just saying things at tribal council. And it's such a dangerous place to try and turn people around because you can actually make them go the other way and think, well, stuff you, you're going. But he's just got the gift at being able to just pull things his way. And it's hard. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, don't like him. No, okay, majority of people do like him now. But I keep getting these people on my page. I have to keep deleting in the group. They're deleting their comments because you've got to be respectful. I don't care if you don't like somebody, but just say you don't like them, but say why. Don't call them names. Don't use bad emojis. And he polarizes people. But there are a lot of people that love him more. There's more people that love him than hate him. So I like that because he's so strategic and he really thinks about everything he says. It's not just his moves. He's very analytical in every word.
Yeah.
That he says to camera, even in confessionals, even when no one else is around.
Yeah, can I just say, I just love how Brendan's just eating like cereals.
No, it's not cereal.
What are you eating, bro?
I've got couscous, pumpkin, tomato, cauliflower, onions in pesto sauce.
That's extremely healthy.
Yeah,
I just wolfed down 3 pieces of pizza. I acted like I was on Survivor.
And just before we do go to useless, I will bring this up because something that I was going to mention. You either love or hate George no between, and I completely agree with that. You know, and I feel like what makes George such a standout character is those feelings, right? Like, you know, I was breaking it down to one of my close friends about George's game. That, you know, he found an advantage, saved half the tribe, told each and every one of them that they were weak and useless, thinking they'd bring them onto his side, but instead they just hated his guts. Found an idol, misplayed it, had his closest alliance member play an idol on him, sacrificing herself, and then had like a close ally flip the whole tribe on his head, saving him. And that's normally what, like a normal game of Survivor, but all of this happens pre-swap the first time he plays, right? Like he does so much, like in any season of Survivor, even Heroes vs. Villains. I was thinking, oh yeah, he might play like a standard big character kind of game, but in my opinion, he made Australian Survivor as global as what it is now with just that Fraser move. Like, I hardly saw any Australian Survivor content online until after Heroes vs Villains. Now everyone's talking about Australian Survivor, how much they like it, how much they don't like it. Everyone's now got an opinion, and it's now podcasting about it to a form of degree. Like even one, what is it, like the best reality TV episode of all time or something like that in America, and it's an Australian show. So how the bloody hell did that? Did that happen?
And that happened because of George. It was his tribal council, and he just made it what it was. And the New York Times, it was amazing. Like I know a lot of Americans love Australian Survivor, but for it to be rated as, a huge episode, that was amazing.
Yeah, and just whenever you think, okay, now this is George's time to go, he always finds a way out. Like I even remember, even though this wasn't even him, but like at the final 10, like they had a 75% chance of getting George out with like 3 out of the 4 people being immune, and they still stuffed it up. It's like, what is it going to take to get rid of this guy? But I do think, which I know Useless, you're definitely going to bring up, that George's main weakness is that he can't win a challenge. Very similar to Sari, the best play is to take them to the end as a shield, but just vote them out right to the very end because they aren't going to win the challenge. That's probably the only flaw in George's game, but like apart from that, I think he's definitely one of the greatest to not win. And if he does win the season, I think it just elevates his legacy. But Useless, tell us why we're all wrong. Like, why is George not the best to never win?
Okay, so again, I totally agree with Brendan and Michelle on the way that George as a personality is what makes him a great contestant for a show for Australian Survivor. As you said, it puts him on the map. I don't deny that he's not on my Mount Rushmore of Australian Survivor players, but I've also got Luke and Shonny where people would rather have players like Haley on there or Christy, people who have actually won. But for me, your Mount Rushmore is more iconic, who actually brings in viewers. Like we're probably not 10 seasons in if we don't have the likes of your Luke and Shonny and now George and Haley in this new era. David, obviously, on All Stars, and now that he's played in the US, now that gets viewers. So I'm not saying George isn't a great personality, but just from a game point stand of view, he is Russell Hantz. I sometimes think he doesn't actually understand Survivor itself. He was clearly taken to the end by Haley, and I think even George knew that the only person he could potentially beat was someone who had already been voted out. I know that's a bit of a taboo, being already voted out, getting a second chance coming back. Obviously, Haley still had enough people on her side to beat George. And then in Heroes vs. Villains, I think it was pretty obvious that Matt and Jerry, and I think people think Matt is not a great player because he finishes as a no vote finalist against Liz. I think if that's a final 2 situation, Matt wins the final tribal council challenge, takes Jerry to the end, and then he wins. But again, there's the twist where it's the final 3. Liz ends up winning that challenge. They get rid of George, which was always the plan, to get rid of George before the final, because like Liz and Matt were always going to beat George in any challenge. So you get to that point, and yes, he basically is a GOAT. And as much as we love to see him on TV, as much as Channel 10 love to say, when's George gonna go? Because his haters want to see him go, and his lovers want to see him outwit everyone. But yeah, I think that massive Fraser blindside, it was great for TV, but I think, like, I'm not a Simon Me sympathizer. I think Simon's does some pretty poor sportsmanship on his own. But the way George acted, and I get it that George was trying to get votes on himself, but it was a bit rubbing like salt in the wound. And unfortunately, Stevie, he comes out the worst in all this, because not only does he not understand what's going on in that tribal, George ends up getting rid of him before merge anyway. And there seemed to be some sort of unspoken word that all the returnees would help each other get to at least merge. So again, from that point of view, I understand where people are saying where George is all this kind of great player with his strategy, but I think a lot of people's strategy, and I know it turned against Shonny, was let's just appease George, let him make all these crazy outlandish moves. We're going to beat him at the end.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I will say about George as well, which I guess is something sort of similar to Luke, but I can't put Luke on a higher caliber to George just because of the cast he's played with. But I'm really excited to see George this season playing with people on his level, because I kind of feel like with Heroes versus Villains, his main enemy was Simon, which no disrespect to Simon. I love Simon, but he hasn't quite proven to be at least as strategic as George or as big of a player, as massively influential. He's always sort of struggled with that sort of area of the game. He's always been like a big player, but we've seen players like Haley, Luke and stuff, these real social players like make a big move and then they're able to like continually make big moves and survive. Whereas I feel like Simon's a player who makes a big move but then really struggles to shake that target off him, whereas everyone else can shake that target off of them. And, the only players sort of on this level was Shonny and Haley, where, in my opinion of Haley in that season, like she just had nowhere to go except for George, and the numbers were just all around George. So Haley's only chance of getting to the end was with George, but how can she beat George without taking him out? I don't know. It's like really hard. And Shonny, who he obviously blindsided before she could get him. And I guess with Luke, like, because he played with like Pia, Janine, Harry, and David, like these are some like top quality, top tier Survivor players in Australian Survivor. So I kind of put Luke like a little bit above that, despite him being its second time. But I'm very curious, Michelle. How is George going to do with all these other Mount Rushmore players, with like David, Luke, Shonny, like even Kirby? Like, how do you see George going through?
Well, as we saw in the new promo, which we dissected the other night, and then we found the widescreen one. He obviously, and him and David go to work together. Now, does it work? Does it not work? It just, we'll have to wait and see. But it's always best to keep your enemies close. So you try to align with another big dog if you know you can't get them out because they've got strong alliance behind them. So what you do is you keep with them so that you can maybe go further forward and hope that person doesn't blindside you. Now, George has got, in his other games, he's had enough feelers out to sort of work out when his name was mentioned so that he could fix it and make everyone go for somebody else. I don't know. I mean, how is it going to all play out? Like, yeah. Hard.
Well, Brendan, like, because I haven't really chatted too much about the brand new promo. What did you sort of think about the idea of George and David working together? Do you think it's a recipe for disaster, or do you think that's George's way to make it far into the game?
I think this is one of those seasons where there's a lot more to it than just game history. So, I mean, they have hinted already, for example, and I'll answer your question in a sec, but they have already hinted with Shonny saying she needs revenge on George, and George saying he needs to work with Shonny, or whatever the exact wording was. So I think this sort of season, because you've got so many like all-star players and so many people that are like very well known within the community, the Survivor community, it makes a not so much a who's the biggest strategic threat, let's get rid of them, or who's the biggest physical threat, let's get rid of them. I think there's a lot more personal feelings to it as well, which is ironic given that it's like almost like these are like the professionals versus the amateurs that you see in newbie seasons. So I think there will be a big element of personal relationships. My understanding is that George and David don't have a particularly good relationship. I don't know if it's bad, but I don't think they're particularly close. Whereas David seems to be a lot closer with a lot more players, be it like Parvati or be it Luke. Janine, he'd have some sort of like more ongoing relationship compared to someone like George. So I think George will be a target. But again, because he's the cockroach, I still think he's going to find a way out. He's going to consistently survive all these attacks against him. And And yeah, in a game like where you've got all these egos, I think there will be all these like layers of like of playing against someone's ego, and then it's like bluffing, but then it's like bluffing because you think they're bluffing, so you're like re-bluffing their bluff sort of thing. So I think there's going to be a whole level that it's not going to be able to be shown on TV, but I think there's going to be all these like meta levels of strategy and relationships that come into play. And I think George probably does have the upper hand when it comes to that sort of stuff. But on the surface, yeah, I think he's going to be a big target, and I don't think he's going to be meshing well with like the biggest ego in his tribe, which is David.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, we do have a couple of comments here. So George has a huge target on his back. Not sure he will last long. And what do we think is George's best route to make a far? In your eyes, like, who are the people that you think George can work with to make a far?
Well, he needs to make it to merge first. I think he'd work quite well with some of the others on the other tribe. But to get to merge, I think the key is David, for them both to get to merge, because they're the top dogs. I see Luke as secondary. I don't see him as top. But they obviously know that they need to work together. But otherwise, obviously not Shawnee. Maybe Kirby. I think, has Kirby met George? I can't remember. But they may have some sort of relationship through Ferris if they've seen each other. I think Janine might work with him. Yeah.
Well, useless. It must be quite hard because you've got two, probably the biggest egos, on the cast with David and George. Like, short term, I can see it working, but can you really see these two players working well long term into the game?
Unfortunately, I don't see them working together. I think it might be they're both kind of fluffing each other up to actually eliminate the other at the very first tribal council that the Australia tribe go to. I think George's best way is actually to team up with Shawnee, and to team up with Kirby, and to team up with Sarah, that four, to get rid of the Champions 2 Alliance, which there's obviously 3 players from the Champions 2 tribe, David, Luke, and Janine. From what I do know, I think Kirby and George would have gone to Mardi Gras together. Not sure if they met there or if they whatever, but just from online stuff, I think all these players would have met through something. Whether that's enough to build alliances, obviously we're probably going to see eliminations every day in a 16-day game. So whether those outside alliances are enough to keep your word in this game, but I do think it is going to be the battle of the alphas, the big strategic threat versus the big social threat. But yeah, I again agree with Michelle. If George can go over the other side where Parvati is, I know Parvati, she loves her gays, so she loves her girl alliance. We know there's 8 women in this game to 6 men, and from the looks of both tribes, I think it's going to be the men that are going to be targeted early because they're going to be targeting each other. So if George can get over to the other side, become in that kind of Black Widow brigade of Parvati, Sari, maybe Cassandra. Again, I haven't actually seen her game, but she might be involved in that. It just could be that sort of game for George where he just, again, he's the cockroach. He just gets by every round until he gets to the end. So I think David's going to have to...
a game like, sorry, just to cut you off with that, I think in a game like this where it's going to be tribal councils pretty much every day, it is more difficult to make long-term social plans. Like, I think you just have to kind of, as long as it's not me, like as long as I can get one more tribal council done, I think that game suits George a lot more. But also, yeah, I do agree with you. It's going to be the two of them clashing right at the start. I would like to see a bit of a Dom versus Wendell scenario play out, and they're both kind of like protect each other out of necessity. But yeah, I just don't think that they'll have enough of a social relationship to have that like respect for each other. I think they're both going to want to get rid of the other one just so they can say like, yep, that's another scalp under my belt or something.
Yeah, well,
And
Brendan, sorry.
I was just going to say, let's not forget, like, I know basically every one of these players has been referred to as the king, queen, god of the survivor. But I think that it is the golden god versus the king of Bankstown. I know Luke was the first king of the jungle, but I think everyone knows Luke's more of a jokey kind of player. I do believe that potentially whichever one of those two lasts the longest will kind of get that crown. As I said, obviously I hope an Australian does win this season, but if not, like if a world player wins it, it's probably George or Luke or David, whichever one of those big three makes it the furthest, might be actually crowned kind of the king of Australian Survivor. Whoever the queen is, we still don't know. It probably is Hayley or Shani, but again, if Shani can make another deep run, she might also get that crown.
That just sort of brings me up to a question that there was in the group, and it said, what's he going to try to do differently to get to the end? But with people liking him enough to vote him in for the win. We know he's got the goods to get to the final, but will be interesting to hear his thoughts on how he can get to number one, or our thoughts, basically. Because this is a totally different game, and these are very strategic, very old school kind of players. They know what the game is. It's not like playing an Australian season where people are voting you for your likability. Oh, you did that to me, so I can't vote for you. I don't think the jury on this season is going to be thinking that way. They're going to be thinking, did you play the best game? If you voted me out, that doesn't matter. Is it the best game? And I think that if George gets to the end, it would be a completely different kind of vote for strategic moves rather than, oh, I like you, which sometimes you can tell they voted for, oh, I like you, or you're in my alliance, even if they weren't the best player.
I don't want to get in on Mucky's podcast because I know this is your show, but my biggest pet peeve is when someone says, oh, this player deserved to win, or it was a salty jury. The jury is the big game changer to Survivor. That's different to other games. You have to be able to work with people to get them. And if you get their vote because you're likable, that is gameplay. That is that is the social game.
True. And that's social as well. But I don't think that I hate when people say they're a salty jury. Yeah, because they've been voted out. They're allowed to, have that sort of demeanor. But but when I ever play a game online or Cine Survivor, I never vote for, oh, I like you more than that player, because I vote.
I'm the opposite. Whenever I've played Orgs, I've made it very clear my vote is always personal.
Oh my God!
Like I've never won. I've never got to the end, but I've made it to the jury in all the games I've ever played, and I've made it very, very like my thing has been either I loved you or I hated you, and that's why you're getting my vote.
What about strategy? What if they're really good players? It doesn't matter.
I just get too into the game. Not.
Oh my God!
But that's sorry, Michelle. That is actually a part of the game. Like if you,
I know that, and in the games, I am a very social person, and that's why I get to the end quite a bit, because I am social and I can talk anyone around. However, in one of my seasons, we were both social, and people saw him have a little bit more strategy, so he got it.
Well, I'm just going back to the Natalie versus Russell because I feel like that's the biggest one of who was the best gameplay. If you knew the characters in that tribe from an outsider's point of view, none of them wanted to vote for Russell. There was a strategy to get votes on the the doctor, who I've forgotten his name, he's that forgettable, just so Russell didn't get second. Because obviously, but then when they realised Shambo and stuff were going to throw votes on Russell, they just had to give Natalie the pure win. But that's how unlikable he was the first time he played. And that's actually not good strategy. And I think George actually got really good in
It wasn't Mitch
the.
Feckless.
Oh yes. What does feckless mean? I just remember he was a doctor. I don't remember anything else. Oh, I do remember the feckless. I mean, Shambo was iconic. And all her questions. But again, I'm just trying to get back to the point is you can make these big moves, but you're actually not a great strategist if you undermine your jury. And I
That's why
actually
George
think
also lost the first game he played. Like he
he
did not read
he
the
lost
jury
the
at all.
yeah, so that's where I think he was taken as a GOAT the first time. And then the second time he played, I actually think he vastly improved. Early on in the game, I think, again, it might have been showmanship that he was saying about with Simon and that big move, because he actually did want votes on himself. So that might have been a bit more showmanship. But he was definitely, if he could get to the end, he would have had players like Haley, maybe even Shawnee. Those kind of players would have actually respected his game more. But unfortunately, he was a GOAT in the way that the people he surrounded himself with, like Matt and Liz, they were just too strong in challenges that he could never. And because we have seen George win rewards, so from standing on a pole, so it's not like he like for KFC. So I'm sure he
Yes.
would do it for $500,000. But coming up against a Olympian and a lifesaver, I just don't think he again great strategist, but I think he gets a bit elevated because people think he's making more moves just because he's the linchpin rather than someone like a Jerry who, I mean, he was a goat, but he was just kind of voting the way everyone else was voting, and that's how he got to the end. So it's yeah. Sorry to take over your podcast, Mike, but
No,
that's
it's
just
all
my
good.
thoughts
Thanks.
on juries and strategy, and how you can be a good strategist by not making big moves.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I recall seeing a video like years ago about the different kinds of goats in Survivor, and there's a type of goat which is like a power goat, and that's like your Russells, like your Georges. I'd even probably chuck in like Philip Shepherd as well, and probably even a coach to a certain degree was like these are strategic players. However, they really lack in the social game, and while I do think George has improved on his social game quite a bit, he still needed players like a Shawnee to help him out in the early stages. So I can see in a season like this, even though it is super fast paced, which I'm very curious to hear from all you guys, in a fast paced game like this, does a social game even matter? Because in the longer run, it absolutely does, because that's how you form numbers around you. But Michelle, I guess similar to like an equilibrium or like an org, will social game even matter? You're just
Okay,
constantly jumping from vote to
equilibrium,
vote.
nothing matters. It's so ridiculously fast, nothing matters at
Yeah.
all. But in an org, yeah, social game does matter. It doesn't matter how short or long it is. If you can talk to people, if you have enough conversations with people, you get more of a bond there, even if it's not a deep and meaningful conversation. But social's always important. Getting individual immunity, yeah, it's great to get you further in case you're scared. But literally, I've won one individual immunity in every game I played, and it's the social that keeps me there, not immunities.
Yeah. Well, how about you, meme of Memestown? Does the social game
King.
even matter? Oh, sorry, King meme of Memestown. Sorry, my bad, my bad. Would the social game even matter in such a short season like this?
If you're coming into the game blind, without any relationships or and I think that might be Cassandra and Tommy. Like, I don't know how many people had actually watched their seasons before being called to this game, let alone had like contacted them. Those sorts of longer term relationships and previous relationships will impact the game. I don't think we're going to get onto the island and all of a sudden Janine's going to turn around and get all salty at someone because they backstabbed her or they lied to her or I don't think people are going to be playing for social reasons. Like I think Michelle used to said earlier on in the conversation, in Australian Survivor seasons, there's a plethora of reasons that people get voted out, especially early on. It could just be, I don't know, that they looked funny. I don't know. I think it was a stupid reason, but in this game, I think people will go in and play strategically, but I think there's going to be these previous relationships that are going to really dictate the basis of all the alliances. So I think to answer the question, in the format, it doesn't make much of a difference. I don't think we're going to see any new relationships form or old relationships break apart. I think whoever's going to come in pre-gaming and whoever's going to come in with like legitimate good relationships, which I think someone like Luke will probably have a lot. I think that's going to be the decisive factor in the social game.
But don't you think when they merge, we'll find new relationships between the two tribes that join together that don't know each other, but aside from David and Parvati, who know each other, but don't you think we'll get some more different sort of friendships striking up, alliances?
I'm sure there would be, but I also think I'm pretty sure, for example, Parvati's got David. Parvati's an Australian Survivor fan anyway, so she would have at least known about a lot of the Australian Survivor players. A lot of the Australian Survivor players will definitely know who Tony, and they might have actually ever spoken. I don't know whether or not Tony actually have realised Australian Survivor's on the radar, but they already could have some level of rapport or some level of familiarity.
I think Parvati knew Shani's seasons too. I'm pretty sure.
I feel like they had a relationship before. Yeah. And someone like Lisa, I think because it's almost like New Zealand Survivor has been absorbed into the Australian Survivor community. I feel like she already might have some relationships with the Aussie survivors. Same with Rob. There's a big Australian fandom of South African Survivor and vice versa. So I think that could be, I still think, Cassandra and Tommy. I think Cassandra only played a few months before this game as well. So she's going to be much more unknown. And Tommy, I don't even know how many people would have watched this season before. So but I still do think the international players, or the majority of them, will have relationships amongst themselves and relationships with the Australian cast.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Useless? Because, since it's such a short season, something that we've sort of talked about in the past is why doesn't George just go sprinting for the idol straight away? Why doesn't Tony just go running for the idol straight away? You've got that much of a big target on your back. Would that stuff really matter in such a short game like this?
I still think there is game awareness. So it might be that with the idol hunt, it will be the first person to crack. It might be, kumbaya, such a big season, waiting for that for the first person to make that rookie error of splitting away from the main group. Oh, wait, there's 5 of us at the campfire. Those 2 are away. That's it. This is how it's going to go once it's voting. I agree with Michelle. I think even in a 16-day game, it is that social play is going to come into play. I think we've had day 10 rewards of letters at home and people are bawling their eyes out, and two. I know it's 2 weeks away, but I think people still, when you're locked, well, not, I was going to say locked in a room, but when you're put on an island together where they're with each other for 24/7, they're sleeping next to each other, all they do, even participating in challenges, I think people forget how much participating in challenges actually probably helps bonds. I'm not sure about you guys, but you play team sport. Round 1 or 2, you're kind of unsure. By round 4, you're best mates with someone you might have only met in pre-season. So I feel like emotional bonds will still happen with players. Will it be enough for these professional Survivor players to go away from their pre-season plans? I'm not sure, but I don't think Tony might do it. I because Tony's Tony, but I don't think we're going to see George or David or even Lou make a rash move for an idol hunt early because they think they can survive longer. I do want to put in a useless fact that George does hold the most days safe in Australian Survivor of 16 days. He was 16 days on Brains vs Brawn with immunity, mainly because he used that first advantage to save himself at the first tribal council. Then the Brawns went to 2 tribal councils. Then he played an idol on himself, and then Kara played an idol for himself. So he was actually safe for 16 days. I mean, if he does that this time, he wins the game. So
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably. Well, I was going to say they'll probably ease the advantages, but you never know with Australian Survivor. It could just be there's more immunity, hidden immunity idols than individual immunity idols this season.
Yeah. Well, Brendan,
I just want to also add to something about like what you were saying reminded me of like a personal anecdote when it comes to like emotions and crying after 10 days and getting letters or whatever. So I've never been that sort of person. Like I've never cried out of emotion except once. And it was basically there's a Jewish tradition when you get married, you split up from your partner for 7 days. So you're not meant to talk to each other. You're not meant to see each other, nothing basically for 7 days leading up to the wedding. And for me, it was particularly difficult because I have to live with my parents for those 7 days. But but when I saw her, like I could feel I was getting emotional, and then as soon as I like walked into the room where she was, I just started crying, which was for me was very out of character. So now that like you've put it in that sense, I feel like maybe there would be some players that could break down after a week or two. Well, it was 10 days of being on the island. And then, it might not just be this like strictly rational, logical sort of way of playing. There could be emotions that then come out as well. So,
yeah. Well, I can see the exact same thing happening with you, Useless. You know, if we ever played together and end up on a tribe, I'd be on my knees like, Useless, oh gosh, I need you. I missed you.
I've unfortunately I've already I went to a friend's wedding and they made eye contact for like the full ceremony, and I said, well, I can't get married because there's no way I could look at someone for a 1 minute straight than a whole ceremony. So if you started breaking down, I'd just start looking at the clouds. I'll be, where's the idol? What's going on?
You'd be like,
So
well,
that's
the
how
bark on
I
the
kind
tree.
of break away from the emotional side. But again, I think you still have to play with emotions. I'm not sure what the food situation is going to be. We know the Australian laws are a bit more critiquey, so they can't just not give them food for 2 weeks so that the game feels more high intensity. So I'm assuming the camp supplies are going to be limited, and they'll probably won't do reward challenges with it being such a small time. But I do think emotions are going to come into play. The social game's going to come into play. Everything's still going to come into play, and it'll be just interesting how they edit the show to show us that it is, fast paced.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I gotta know, where is George going in your mind? Like, is he final tribal council, post-merge, pre-merge, first? Where do you sit him in the 4 categories?
I hate when you ask me this question. Because I've seen who he is friends with on social media, I think he gets to merge.
To merge? How about you, Useless? Like, where do you sort of place him on your ranking?
Ooh, see, Michelle's gone with he's following the other tribe, so he must make it far kind of situation.
I'm going with this person. I wouldn't see him talking to unless maybe he had merged or he's on jury with this person.
maybe
I'm just
they
thinking
all
maybe. Yeah, or maybe they've just got some nice little Ponderosa holiday. Unfortunately, to the George lovers.
Oh,
I
actually,
think
yeah, because they'll all go to Ponderosa, won't they? None
I,
of them will go home. It's only 2 weeks.
No.
yeah.
I think everyone makes the jury.
Oh, you've killed it now, Useless.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Jesus.
sorry. I'm just thinking he goes. I think he goes first. I think he's a first boot. Not
First?
well.
Really?
Well, first Australian to go. So
Yeah, and
whether
everyone
that
thinks
be
Tony's going to go first on the other tribe.
yeah. So I mean, they're like your your biggest wild cards, it might make the season a little bit boring. But I've already said that I think Sarah and Janine are going far, and if those two are going far, it means the big players are going early, which unfortunately, George,
I think George finds an idol. I don't think
could
he's going
happen.
first.
Yeah. My hot take is that David finds an idol and he plays it for George at the first tribal. And that's what the whole yeah, when they had the like tribal scramble, you know, in the promo.
Yeah,
I
I
reckon
know.
David saves George for the first vote.
Unless George
then-
has the idol and he says, I need to know that you're on this. Because George said he'd play it for David, maybe. I can't see
Well,
George or David playing their
let's-
idol for anybody, though.
Let's take a look at the timetable. Are they going to be doing a tribal on day one? Like, are they going to do like, I don't know, some sort of marooning challenge which doubles up as the immunity challenge, and then go to tribal that night?
I
Because
reckon
they've
that'd
got.
be-
I think that could be. So let's say so my prediction for George is he's going to be the first target. He'll be. It doesn't matter who's on the tribe, how the alliances fall. I think he's going to be the number one target of people not in his alliance. I don't think there would be enough time to find an idol if they go to tribal council that night. Given that they're going to have to do the welcome to the island ceremony that they do and the challenges and that sort of stuff. So unless George can find it in 15 minutes, I don't think
It's
he's
near
going
the
to idle his
well.
way out.
If it's near the
I
well,
mean,
he can
isn't,
find it.
isn't George and Nash friends? I'm pretty sure Nash must have taught him how to find an idol in like
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
So, well, maybe, yeah, that's probably maybe the only way. But so, yeah, if George, I think George will be the first target. If he somehow survives, I think that would then, to me, imply that he's like set himself up from that initial war that he's going to have with be it David or whoever else. And I think he'll go far. So in my thought, it's either he's going to be first one out or he's going to make an exceptionally deep run, maybe even get to the finals.
Yeah. I think he's post-merge because I was having a strong look at it, right? And I was like, hey, I can see George with Shawnee, Kirby, and Sarah because I don't think Sarah's going to be playing a team game. I think she's here to make a name for herself because it's been so long since she's played. And then the Shawnee promo came out where she said the one thing she wants to do is get rid of George. So I was like, well, okay, I'll put him, right back down at the bottom. But then after the promo of him and David working together, like I do think there is something exciting, almost, sort of wanting to work with like the big dogs of the tribe. I can see players being like, oh, imagine pulling off a blindside with George. What if we worked with George to take out David, to take out Luke, to take out Shawnee? I mean, you can use the same argument for against George. People might just want to take him out because he's the guy to take out, But I do think that somehow he's going to find his way to slip through the cracks as he normally does. But I think like maybe an early merge, sort of similar to how I see Rob. I think Rob is such a massive physical asset that the second it becomes individual game, I think they cut him straight away. So I can see something similar.
I was going to say, I think Rob's going to be the first gone on the other side. I think
Oh, really?
I love Rob, but the way he plays and the way South Africans are, I don't think it's going to sit right. I think he either is going to try and take too much control too early and then go. I know this is a George video, but I think it's going to be the same thing. It is going to be a power struggle. George is obviously going to be the first target, and then it might just be a ploy and they vote off one of the one-time players. But I just thought as well, they could potentially have the idol at the challenge, or they could have it at tribal council. The other thing is it might be one of those idols where you find it. If you don't go to tribal, you have to give it to someone. So just say Parvati finds it, but world immune, she might give it to David. Then David has it and he's like, I'm not in trouble. I'm going to say George. So something crazy like that could happen. And again, we're not going to be sure what is actually real and what's just for hype. But again, I'm a big believer that this season, like a lot of returning seasons, is the players that you're not scouting on. They're the ones that go far, and it's your George Davids, Robs, Tonys that go in the first 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah. Well, Brendan, like for me personally, the best opening episodes is like the All Stars opening, how they had like the clues, at like the hero challenge moments for the idol that's hidden at tribal, or even Blood versus Water, how you had multiple clues and very like open, obvious spots. So then they had to pretty much wrestle for the idol, on the podium. Do you think we can maybe see a twist, something similar to that for the opening of the season?
I actually did. I hated that. Not hated it, but I disliked that it was Chrissy and was it Brianna? I think fighting over it, or someone else fighting over it. And it just, I don't know, like it didn't. I feel like that's like something you'd set up for players that are clueless, because not only did I think Chrissy got it, but then it was like a useless idol at the end of it. Like, what's the point of having an idol if it's going to be so public that everyone knows?
It had to be played that night as well.
Did it? Well, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
and from her point of view, she didn't know if she was going to get votes. Obviously, it was a unanimous decision against Andy, so it did come off a little bit. But could you imagine if Chrissy was the main vote, she grabbed it? Similar to Adam in whatever season that was. Was that Winners at War where he was trying to grab the podium? So it's like any twist in Survivor. It only works if it goes to production's way.
Yeah, but I think the way that one played out and having public, like I recall bad times when I don't know, it's weird sort of results when they've had things hidden at tribal. Like I don't ever recall thinking like, that's going to be a perfect like sort of, I don't know, setup for the next tribal or whatever. Like I hope they don't do that. And if they do, I think it could end up being potentially pointless. Like if it's, I don't know, Kirby gets hold of it, but she's not even in the mix for, like, she's not on the chopping block at all. So yeah, I don't think they'll do that. Well, I really hope they don't do that sort of twist. I wouldn't mind if it's at the challenge, like so they rock up to their first challenge, and then JLP says for immunity, and then also that goes for hidden immunity or something, and then basically it's like a choice of either winning immunity or trying to find the idol. I like those sorts of dynamics, but and especially round one, where you're not really settled yet, especially on like a tribe, the world tribe, for example. I think there could be a lot of chaos there, and potentially, David and George could think, okay, well, I'm the biggest person out here, I'm the biggest ego, I'm the biggest threat, I better find that idol. So we could see something like that, which I'd love, actually. So,
yeah. Well, I kind of feel like we've sort of come to a close on George, but Michelle, I've got a cheeky game I want to do tonight. A little bit of a cheeky, naughty game I want to do tonight. So George is a politician, right? So the game is called Who's the Politician? Very unique. I know, right? So it's a game of bluff, right? So Eustace and Brendan, I'm going to send you guys an individual message. One of you is a normie and one of you is a politician. And you have to convince Michelle that you're not the politician. And Michelle, if you get it right, I don't know, I'll give you a prize or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Come to Sydney. Right, but it's a game of bluff. All right.
Okay.
Are you guys ready for this game?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
I'll quickly send it now. Boom. All right. You both should have received the message on your rolls.
Yeah.
Message. Where is it?
I sent it to your Australian Survivor memes account.
Okay.
While they're waiting, Survivor Twist over here thinks George is going late game. Could be.
Well, yes. I mean,
I just want to say hi to Survivor Twist. I have noticed him recently as a recent follow on my page.
Yes. Hello, Survivor Twist. Welcome to the live. But Cass and Tommy final 2, I reckon that'd be pretty funny. Like the two people.
Would be awful.
It'd be so funny.
No, I think that's great. It just
like
all these English speaking people, they could just, who are you?
Yeah. Exactly.
So-
All the bloody like English colonizers around the world get put to shame, and it's the real international people who make it to the very end of the first ever global championship. And hi there, you guys are my mentors in advance. All right. Brendan,
Let's go.
have you found out your role?
Well, I actually didn't look up and see what the message said, so I didn't want because if I read the message, I might give away whether I am or not the politician. So, I think
You've
we're gonna
got to
start
read the
with-
message. I'm looking
got
at
to-
things that you've got to read it.
He's
I'm-
actually
no, I'm
gone
gonna
with the urn
be.
twist. He's
I'm
gone with
going to
the urn
defer
twist.
to Useless, and he can answer the question first.
Well, I'll
Okay.
just tell you right now, Michelle. Memes is the politician. He is.
Is that all I get? One sentence.
That's,
I need
that's
more
what
than
he
one
is.
sentence.
Well, if I was a politician, I'd be talking about crocodiles and eating people and stuff. But I'm not a politician, so I think I'm making
Well, I
it
mean, that's-
worse for you by talking.
That's
more,
what the
Michelle.
politician
It
would say,
is.
to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, I know I can
Yeah.
convince 4 grown adults to wear a blanket for a podcast, but I'm not a liar. I'm a straight shooter.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that memes is the politician.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, memes.
Well,
This
my
is the ultimate
argument would be-
rivalry. I love you two. Go on.
It's 50-50 if I'm the politician or not, because I don't know. So you're not going to get any read off me. You can go with a coin toss and basically put your decision up to luck, or you can go with your gut. And based on what Useless has said, my gut would be saying he's a politician. But
Would I lie
so
to you,
I'm just-
Michelle? Would I lie to you?
It's not fair that King Memes has not read his message because I'm looking for something here and you're giving me nothing, King Meme, because you haven't read the message.
That's the whole point.
Michelle,
my whole point.
My name is
Yeah.
Facts. I say facts. They might be useless, but I say facts.
It's irrelevant in the scenario.
And
All right.
okay.
I think Useless is the politician.
All right. Time for the grand reveal. Who here is a politician? It's
Me.
Brendan. It's memes. Whoa, oh my
Michelle.
god.
Really?
Why did
well.
you not trust me?
You were blinking.
I did read the
a
message,
lot.
by the way.
It's the tism.
Oh god.
Sorry.
Actually,
Yeah,
I wanted to win either way, and the only way for me to win either way was to trick you, which I did because you didn't believe me, or it was to reveal Brendan as the winner, and I would have been telling the truth. So either way, I was a winner. So
Yeah.
that was my
It would have been
bold
better if
strategy.
you put your hand on your heart before, but you didn't. You've just done it now, but you didn't do it before. Would have helped your case.
Yeah.
My case.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Michelle. Well, if we
Sure.
ever get on the real island, I promise I never lie. I only tell facts.
Good. Good.
Anyways, that does bring us to the end of our podcast. Brendan, where can people find you? Like, I don't think I've even heard of your page.
I'll share
Where
his
can people
location
not
right now.
find him? Are you kidding me?
You can find me at Useless Australian Survivor Facts, where I post shit from my ass.
Yeah.
I'm Australian Survivor Memes. I basically promote myself and promote this podcast lately is what I've been doing. Yeah, I guess if you like memes and you like my version of humor, then give me a follow.
Yeah. And how about you, Useless? Where can people find you on the internet? Like, I heard you're pretty popular on Facebook.
Unfortunately, my Facebook has been banned. I was reported as fake news, which is horrible. They must have been Michelle's, not believing me. No, it's because people would message me trying to get on the show, and I was like, "Oh, mate, I just post what the urn looks this year." But no, in all seriousness, you can find me on Hinge, and you can also find me on Instagram at Useless Australian Survivor Facts, and I do have a TikTok which I'm going to post more when the season starts of my little reviews of this season.
Yeah. Just one final question before we move to the final segment of our podcast. Memes. Will we be going on offense or defense when a Survivor page start taking your page and making memes?
Well, I've given up on getting onto the show. I've had 10, actually multiple. Sometimes I've applied multiple times for a season and never gotten on. So I used to worry about what Channel 10 thought of me and what the players thought, but since I've accepted I'm not getting on the show, I will be very heavily on the offense this year.
Also, I can't wait to see all the action. But Michelle,
Yes.
we're almost done. Can you believe it? One more podcast left to go.
Yeah, see, this isn't good because that means we have to do the tiering, and I'm not ready for the tiering at all. I'm just going to be useless, totally useless at it.
But we'd be useless.
Wait, who said my name?
I was waiting for that.
Don't worry. I'll put in my own tier list, and everyone will say how my opinion doesn't matter. So,
and how you've never watched Survivor.
Yeah. But Michelle, take a guess. Who are we talking about next?
Well, it must be Cass and Tommy, a double show.
Whoa. How could you have guessed that? But yes, everyone, we're going to be talking about Cassandra and Tommy this coming Friday. So make sure you tune in for that. And then after that, we're going to have a bit of a week break. So we'll be overseas, but we're going to be doing a tier list where Michelle, myself, hopefully Richard, and a very special guest are going to go through each and every single player, whether if we think they're winning, post-merge, pre-merge, or first boot. So make sure you check out for that. But as always, subscribe for some cheeky, naughty times. Michelle, what have you been up to? I know you're quite a scandalous, cheeky person. What have you been up to?
So scandalous. Nothing. The most scandalous thing I did last weekend was go in a competition to see if I could hammer 2 nails down into a piece of wood faster than 2 other girls. And I lost, and I hate losing. So it was a really bad weekend.
Gosh, how could you lose, Michelle? It's only like nails and wood. Like it's not.
I was hitting more of the piece of wood than I was of the actual nail. And so, I'm really not good at that. They should have given me a puzzle.
Are we still live?
Yes. We're still.
Okay.
Still
I'll wait. Or is this naughty time? Are we allowed to say
how naughty of you, Michelle? Gosh.
You know what? Let's see if Useless or King Meme can, one up me on that one.
All right, King Memes. What have you been up to that's very naughty or cheeky recently?
I mean, well, my wife's pregnant, so I guess I did something naughty at one point.
Ooh, congratulations, brother.
Well, way to tell the world you're raw dogging it, but okay. This is the naughty time, I swear.
That is the naughty time indeed. But yeah, how about you, Useless? Anything cheeky or naughty you've been up to apart from the hinge?
I did go on a date actually.
Okay.
And being over 30, our second date is moving in together. So no.
Jeez.
But pretty close to it, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, she's a lovely girl, and we'll be on Blood versus Water too. So look forward to that. And
moving fast.
Yeah. No, I mean,
16 days is all we've got.
Can we put up the last comment here? Because what the hell? That sounds like more like an Amazing Race challenge than a Survivor challenge. What show are you doing? What org? What are you doing?
But can I just say that's pretty naughty of you, Survivor Twists. Very naughty.
Taking fountains and challenges.
Have you got the rights to take photos of fountains? Yeah. Like, are they public domain or are they owned by the government? Have you got the permit to take photos of them? Because if not, and that's very, very naughty of you, Survivor Twist. It's Survivor Twist, and I need ideas.
Okay, well, that's a really random, weird idea. I could give you normal ideas.
Well, I haven't been up to much cheeky or naughty things, but I do have a very cheeky, naughty statement I'd like to share. Michelle, so you know how with like quite a lot of religions and cultures and stuff, especially in the olden times where you weren't allowed to be gay, right? You know, there's very like heavy anti-religion culture.
Yes.
Turns out, in the very basic scripture of the Bible, that it is okay to be gay as long as you are high. Because if a man lies with another man, he must be stoned.
Rightio.
Yeah. Anyways, let's put us to the end of our podcast. Make sure you subscribe for some cheeky.
I mean, it's
I think
relevant.
that's actually the
Macedonian
joke that got
Jesus.
the
I get the
project
relevance.
best.
Yeah. I try to at least make my naughty facts, you know, time with the podcast. I guess, you know, Macedonian Jesus and his government. And I say they haven't been stoned in days. Well, you must be pretty good at catching, mate. You know, good on you. But yeah, until
You
next
haven't
time.
been because you've been taking photos of fountains.
I'm sure that's what high people do. I don't think sober people take photos of fountains. I don't know. That's just me.
But anyways, subscribe for Cheeky Naughty Times. We'll catch you on Sunday. We'll talk about Tommy and Cassandra. Make sure you follow Useless Australian Survivor Facts and Australian Survivor Memes. And if you haven't already, make sure you join the Australian Survivor Fans Facebook page as well, so Michelle can delete your comments whenever whenever you post something to me.
Or anyone else any colourful things, I will delete them.
Just one final comment. Wow, nice fountain flow, bro. Thank you so much, Survivor Twist, your legend, and have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.